Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, it's me, Septi Triani. In this video, I will answer some questions about assessment in English language teaching. Number 1. Teaching, assessing, and testing are closely interrelated and constantly concerned with each other. Explain the relationship among them. Testing is useful for knowing the extent to which students understand the material. Assessment is useful for assessing the result of work or tasks given by the teacher by student. So that teaching, assessing, and testing are interrelated because if only teaching, no testing and assessment, then teaching and learning activities are not effective and we as teachers do not know the extent to which students' ability to understand the subject matter presented. Number 2. Explain our differences between the communicative and integrative approach. The communicative approach is an approach based on the idea that the ability to use language in communication is a goal that must be achieved in language learning. This communicative approach is considered superior in language teaching. The purpose of language teaching with a communicative approach is to form students' communicativeness. That is, through various learning activities. Students are expected to master communication skills, namely the ability to use speech form in accordance with language function in the process of understanding and use. The integrative approach can be interpreted as the unification of various aspects into one unique whole. The integrative approach has a relationship with language learning. This integrative approach aims to integrate existing materials or everyday life that is within the scope of our life applied in the learning process. Through this approach, language lessons can be combined with other lessons but do not eliminate material to be discussed. Number 3. Explain the following form of the test and provide the example. Subjective test. The subjective test is also known as an essay test. Subjective test is a kind of learning progress test that requires answers that are discussion or description of words. Usually, the questions is preceded by words such as describe, explain, why, how, compare, conclude, and so on. Subjective text itself has several, namely limited description. For example, mention the intrinsic elements of a novel. Free descriptions, for example, what is the role of literature in life? Objective tests are often also called dichotomously scored items. Objective tests require students to choose the correct answer among the possible answers provided, provide short answer, and incomplete questions or statements. Types of objective tests include true or false tests. In this test, the questions are in the form of statements that students follow up by circling option true or false. Example, true or false? Siti Nurbaya novel was written by Mara Rusli. And formative test is a test of learning outcomes that determine the success of the teaching and learning process carried out by the teacher, in order to obtain feedback from the teaching efforts made by teacher. For example, a test that is conducted after the discussion of each chapter or basic competence. And the last, summative test. Summative test is a test of learning outcomes to determine the success of student learning after following a certain teaching program. The goal is to determine the result achieved by students in certain programs in the form of the success status of students at the end of each education and teaching program. For example, quarterly test and of semester tests. Number 4. Explain one example of positive and negative prospect. Positive prospect effect, writing good English questions, and negative prospect effect is test-oriented learning phenomenon. Number 5. In constructing a multiple choice test, the test administrator should provide the options or choices beyond the correct answer. Mention the structure of multiple choice. 1. Answer choice must be homogeneous and are logical in terms of material. 2. The subject matter must be formulated clearly and unequivocally. 3. Each question must have one correct or most correct answer. 4. Items should not depend on the answer to the previous questions. Elaborate on the advantage and limitation of multiple choice for the test administrator. Advantage: easy administration. Time limitation: short tests can be more economical for students in terms of cost and time. And limitation: economical in terms of cost and time, but sometimes reliability is not maintained. And the last for limitation is, but for teachers it takes a relatively long time to write it. Number 6. CEFR stands for Common European Framework of Reference. Explain the practical purposes of CEFR. CEFR is becoming a standard way of describing proficiency level and understanding a foreign language, especially in an academic environment. And the last is number 7. Authentic assessment is an evaluation process involving multiple performance measurements that reflect the student's learning. Explain the advantage of applying authentic assessment rather than a traditional check. Authentic assessment is not intended to replace traditional assessment, particularly the multiple choice objective test form. Authentic assessment aims to evaluate students' abilities in a real-world text. Through this authentic assessment, it is hoped that true and accurate information can be obtained regarding what students really know and can do. I think that's all for me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.